All right, we are here with Alli Mcfee today. Alli is the owner operator of the Modern Goddess. Is that
Yeah.
right, Alli? Make sure I get that
Yeah.
right.
Modern goddess lifestyle.
Modern Goddess Lifestyle, which in and of itself, I love that name. I want to live the Modern Goddess lifestyle. So tell us, Alli, how did you come to doing the Modern Goddess Lifestyle?
Yeah, so a lot of it came from my own personal journey of healing my hormonal issues. So for me, I was on the birth control pill for 5 years,
Yeah.
and I actually read the book. Karen, have you read the book The Red Tent before?
Like by far one of my all-time favorite books I've ever read. I've read it twice, and I very rarely will read a book twice.
Yeah, yes, it was very empowering for me as well. So when I was reading that book, I really got in touch with this feeling of just this cyclical living in connection to the moon and being close to the earth. And I realized that I wasn't experiencing that with being on the pill. In fact, it felt like my libido had dried up. I just didn't feel very expressive at all. I felt very disconnected with my femininity. So I stopped taking the birth control pill. And then what had happened was for 2 years, I didn't see a menstrual cycle.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yes. And I wasn't too worried because I thought, my system is just balancing out. But then when it finally came back, it came back to 2 weeks every single month. And it was about 7 days worth of just like this brown, like really dark blood. And I felt exhausted and like food cravings, things like that. And then I would have 7 days of red blood that was just super heavy, like waterfall flowing. And at this time I had taken the job as a head chef at the first raw vegan gluten-free cafe in Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was an amazing experience to be a part of that and the creation process. But just with the amount of work that a head chef does, I was working the first month like 80 hours a week, and my cortisol was super high because I was
Yeah.
stressed. I couldn't sleep, and so that I wasn't getting enough rest. And so then my estrogen levels were super high, progesterone levels were low. So I
Yeah.
was just experiencing like this awful
And
long
prior,
period.
Alli, to going on birth control, is that why you went on birth control to begin with? Was because you had dysfunction in your menstrual cycle? Like, had you always had it?
Yeah, so I actually went on birth control just because I wanted to be safe,
Yeah.
prevent pregnancy, things like that. Looking back, I did have abnormal PMS. I remember like in college, I used to come home from school because my cramps were so bad, and I would just lay in bed with a heating pad for
Hmm.
hours.
Yeah.
So before I would say birth control, my hormones were imbalanced.
Yeah.
But coming off of the birth control pill, like that made it worse, I would say. Like my body became dependent on it, and my progesterone became really low. And so I ended up leaving the head chef position of the cafe to focus on my health because I felt so depleted. I felt adrenally fatigued. Like I was losing so much blood every month that I felt like my body was mineral deficient, just with
Yeah.
the amount of iron and calcium, magnesium your blood releases. I mean, this was just like a constant being on my period kind of
Yeah.
thing. So after all
Terrible.
that, yeah. So I ended up exploring how to heal my body through food, because food was my mission. How can people um, come back to these natural practices of dietary choices, of clean diet to help heal their ailments? And after I left the cafe, I went to a doctor, and they're like, oh, you could take this synthetic hormone, or you could, all of these things that I didn't want to do because that's not what I taught with the food. I
Yeah.
really believe that food is medicine. So I started searching, like, how can I use food as a way to balance my menstrual cycle? And so I ended up training with the Integrative Women's Health Institute and becoming a women's health and nutrition coach. And then in the meantime, I learned all about how you can eat as women for the 4 phases we go through hormonally each month. We're not just either on our period or off our period. There are foods that
Right.
help to support the period, as well as our ovulatory phase, our luteal phase, our follicular phase, and these phases match up to the seasons. It's like our own internal seasons, and there's foods
Right.
that can amplify those hormones.
Yeah, which I think is so cool because nobody, like I was with my sisters last night at a park and we were talking about that because I've just started to read Terry Wall's book, The Wall's Protocol. I don't know if you've read it, but she's all about, she cured her, well, not cured, but she reversed her MS symptoms. And she was in a wheelchair. And then with food alone, she reversed all of her symptoms and is now walking, like is symptom free of her MS pretty much. And we're just talking to nobody, it's such a funny thing, but very rarely does actually somebody look at food as an answer anymore. Like when it comes to hormonal stuff, even with, a lot of stuff, what I talk about, people always want to know, well, what supplements to take.
Right.
Like, okay, well, I'm going to give you your list of supplements, but people don't actually think, well, how can I fix this problem by changing what I'm eating? People just kind of want that quick, give me the pill. Or give me, some sort of thing that's going to fix the problem, but it's not usually food, unfortunately. They might look at food for weight loss, but they don't say, well, how can I optimize my hormones by eating for the cycle, right? So I think it's great. I think that's something that has to change with women.
Exactly, Karen. I feel the same. And, I do feel that bioidentical hormones can be helpful if, if that's like the route that a woman needs to take. But for me, at the time, now I'm 28, but at the time I was 26 and I thought, I want my body to learn how to make my own hormones. I was on the pill and getting off that's what created the dysregulation. And now I want to support my body in its own functioning of producing those hormones. So looking at nutrition was really helpful. And so my periods are now about 3 to 5 days every single month. And the most exciting part is I don't get any cramps. They just come, and it sometimes it even feels like I'm ovulating while I'm on my menstruation. It feels like this just like juicy release, but it's red blood flow. And so I have really come to honor my flow more like a beautiful expression of my feminine just experience.
I read that article you just recently wrote about in the Elephant Journal and how you're like, I used to think of it as my curse, and that's how society tells us. It's like, cover it up, don't be a bitch, you're on your period. We're constantly bugged about it and shown to kind of shove it under the carpet. And how you just decided that was it. I'm not going to think of this as my curse anymore.
Yes.
In the world.
I fully agree with that. And I do a lot of sacred sisterhood work, and it's all the cycles of womanhood, right? It's even menopause or moon pause, whatever you prefer to call it. It's like these transitions are really rites of passage. And when we listen to our bodies and learn how to listen to our intuition at this time, we can use menstruation for letting go. We can use moon pause for a transition in our life where we're heading into like a whole new experience. And so I feel like society really just like dampens this experience, because sometimes we can have a lot of symptoms, and in our society it's so fast paced, it's focused on productivity and consumerism. So for us to have these experiences, in order to keep up, we're either chugging espresso or popping aspirin, and really we don't make the time to slow down and honor what our body is saying at these times. But really, like those messages of pain, like when we express that emotionally, can be like huge factors to telling, like guides to telling us like what I need to let go of, and like what little whisperings do I need to listen to that could change my life, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's really a misunderstood thing, the period. It's just looked at as like gross, and I have women that will come in and be like, oh, I love being on my birth control because I haven't had my period for 3 years. And I'm like, no, you don't know what that's doing. Like, you shouldn't be suppressing the most natural thing in the whole world, right? It is unfortunately very much so. And I always tell women too, what you were just talking about there, when we're PMSing, people are automatically think, the emotional state that's coming up for them during that time is something that's not real. And they think, oh, it's just because I'm PMSing. And I'm like, no, this is when you're so sensitive that what's really bothering you is actually coming forth and you can't suppress it. Better way of
Yes.
looking at it, right?
Yes. I fully agree with you.
So tell us I'm new to the eating for the cycle. So let's just start with like the month cycle and just give us a little bit, because I think everybody that's going to be watching this is probably going to be really new to this idea of, oh, like let's get in tune with our monthly cycle. So just tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
I would love to. So I'll give like a little overview about the hormones, and then I'll talk
Yeah.
about how it matches up with the seasons, and then foods to eat, like some different food choices you can eat.
Yes.
Um, so day one of our cycle is when we get our flow, our period.
Yeah.
And usually that lasts around 3 days for some women, 5 days, sometimes 7 days. Any more than 7 days is a little bit too much.
That's a problem.
Yeah, and that could, mean that maybe there's some excess estrogen, things like that. But so that is our menstruation time. That is our inner winter. So if you think about like seasonally, winter is the time when, all the leaves are falling from the trees and the ground is barren, it's cold, it's a time of rest. And so for us, all of our hormones when we're menstruating, like they return to their lowest level. Our uterine lining is completely shedding. It's a time that requires a lot of energy just to release that. And so we need to rest. We need to honor ourselves. And so the first day or so of our menstrual cycle is really the time that if we take that time to really rest and get in touch with our intuition, it can just kind of set our chi energy for the whole month ahead. And so that's kind of what goes on there. And then once we move into our follicular phase, FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, releases it stimulates the release of 15 to 20 eggs on our ovaries. And then estrogen starts to rise. So we go from menstruation, low hormones, everything returns to a low level. Now we have this high estrogen, or this estrogen that's starting to rise, follicle stimulating hormone starting to rise. And so internally, what we feel is this inner spring energy. So after we've been in winter, suddenly the sun comes out and it's getting warmer. The days are becoming lighter, and we feel this like new energy to get out of hibernation. And that's the same thing with after our menstruation. If you've been wearing sweatpants and things like that,
Yep.
suddenly you're like, wait a second, there's other things that I want to put on my body, like the bloating's gone. I want to wear something that's more feminine. And estrogen is a very feminine hormone. It gives us our breasts and our hips. And so when we're having this escalating amount of estrogen, it can make us feel more like feminine, expressionate, as well as creative. It makes our brain be able to, it's kind of like a computer tab where we have all these tabs open and we can multitask. Estrogen, yeah. So estrogen does that. And that's why when we talk to the men in our lives and we're telling them a story, they're like, what is the point? And we were like, I went to the grocery store and then I saw my friend and then I thought about this. And then it's like everything is connected. And that's kind of what estrogen does to our brains. But men are very just like, okay, task oriented, like get to the point. I don't understand what you're saying. But our female friends get it.
Yep.
So again, so that's our inner spring, is our follicular phase when estrogen's starting to rise and we just have this new creative, like energetic feeling.
I always find I want to exercise. That's when I want to have sex. It's when I want to be social. It's like, and you can put on like you said, the slimming clothes that you're like, oh yeah, I feel good. Things like that.
Yeah. And estrogen will do that to you. It helps like your face, like it says that when women are getting close to ovulation, we have this luminous glow, like our skin, like the elasticity of it, it's really nice and things like that. So then we go into ovulation, which is around day 14 of our cycle, but for every woman, it's different. Some women ovulate earlier, some women ovulate a little bit later. And ovulation can also change due to traveling or additional stress, things like that. So charting your cycle can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But you can tell when your ovulation is coming because there's usually like a juicy cervical fluid that you'll notice down there for about like 3 to 5 days. And So at this time, this is our inner summer. This is when our energy is most expanded. Our estrogen levels are peaking. The luteinizing hormone is triggered so that the egg that's been growing, well, one of the eggs becomes the most dominant during the follicular phase, and that one will take over. And then during ovulation, it bursts through the follicle. And then that's when we are ready to make a baby. That's nature's time. So during ovulation, it's our inner summer. And when we think about summer, the leaves are fully expanded on the trees. The vegetables are starting to like grow on the plants, and the fruits are coming out, the flowers, everything. So that's kind of like our internal environment. Like we are literally fruiting, and we are, very fertile. We're very fertile at this time. So
yeah, women always ask why they don't feel like having sex every day like their husbands, and they think that they're broken. And I'm like, actually, we really just want to have sex for, about anywhere between 3 to 7 days. Like, not for everybody, but majority of women, that's because of our cycle. And it amazes me how many women don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of women don't. So, I mean, some of the women that I work with, when they're trying to conceive and make a baby, they may not know this. And then if they're trying to have conceive after they've already been through ovulation in their luteal phase, there's no egg to be fertilized. So it's so important to know your cycle and your inner rhythm. And yeah, like you were saying, sex drive is high because testosterone is highest at this time of the month too, during ovulation. So it gives us a lot of energy. We feel like moving our bodies more. We feel very social. So yeah, ovulation is just a summer season of full expansive energy, just lots of, excitement, high sex drive, communicative energy, things like that.
Yeah.
And so then after our ovulation, we go into our luteal phase, which that is the longest phase of our cycle. That usually lasts for about 10 to 14 days. And towards the end of our luteal phase, that's usually when the PMS starts to come up if we have PMS. And the luteal phase, so estrogen does decline a little bit, and then it'll dip back up ever so slightly. But progesterone is the main hormone that's going to kick in. And with progesterone, usually that's a hormone that makes us feel more grounded, like nesting. So with pregnant women, they have a lot of progesterone because progesterone is needed to sustain the uterine lining. Estrogen helps to build the uterine lining, and progesterone sustains it. It's like the glue that holds it together. So if the egg does become fertilized, then it can implant into the uterus and grow, and this progesterone helps like the baby grow. So women who have women who are pregnant will have more progesterone. So that's why we see women kind of just feeling like nesting in their home and setting everything up, preparing for the baby, really getting grounded. Progesterone can do that to you. So, so what that does is like our internal luteal phase internally can be matched up with our the autumn season, so fall.
Okay. Yeah.
Because with the fall time, it's kind of like this back to school feeling. Suddenly we need to get grounded, get focused, like focus on the projects we've been created. Maybe we created these projects in the spring, and then in the summer we kind of just enjoyed the lazy summer days a little bit too much. So the fall time is all about tying up loose strings and finishing projects, and progesterone can really help get the mind ready to do that. And so sometimes when there's not enough progesterone, which is what was happening in my case that I was explaining with the high estrogen, low progesterone, if there's very common for women right now with estrogen dominance. Yeah. So in that case, if there's too low levels of progesterone in relation to estrogen, that's when the PMS symptoms can become worse. The mood swings, the cravings, the bloating, the cramping, the fatigue. And so because the luteal phase is the longest, in the beginning, you still kind of have the more of the higher energy of the ovulation. And then towards the end, that's when our energy starts to decline and we get ready to prepare for menstruation. So if you know your rhythm and you know your cycle, it's really important to plan your schedule to have more days of rest before menstruation comes. Like, You know, if you like prepare food ahead of time, so you have food in your kitchen, or, you know, schedule some more taking Epsom salt baths, like really prepare for it so you can honor that time. So when it comes, it's not so intense and you're not feeling overwhelmed with your schedule.
Yeah. Because I think if you fight it, it just makes the PMS worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes.
it's better to be like that's my time when I do more yoga and I won't do as much exercise, like cardio type exercise, and I'm not as social, and I honor that. And that took me a long time to get to that point where instead of trying to fight through it and take stuff to get me, I need my energy back, or and it's like, no, let's just honor this time, which I don't think anybody does.
Right.
Well, not very many people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a new way that's coming back into our society right now, because so many women, especially in the corporate world, are just feeling this like go, 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 this linear cycle. And we're cyclical, juicy beings. Like, we want to honor our flow. So I feel like more women are waking up to this. Like, I want to work with my body's rhythm. I don't want to put it into a box.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I share some foods for each season?
Yes, I'm excited to hear about the food. And like, is this what you practice? Like, do you eat then for your cycle? Is for every month kind of thing? Or is it more throughout the year?
Yeah, so I will just tend to eat more of these foods depending on what phase I'm in. But honestly, I've got to a point where I'm just really listening to my body. You know, decreasing sugar can be really helpful for women's hormone health. So oftentimes if we're eating too much sugar, then our cravings can lead us to more sugary foods or carbohydrates. But, you know, when sugar is lessened in the diet and we become really in touch with our inner like food compass, listening to our body, like if I go to a grocery store, like I'll notice, like the other day I was thinking, oh, I really want to get some like tomatoes and cabbage and all of these vegetables on my salad. And I realized I hadn't been eating a rainbow of foods lately because I'd been traveling and it had become, you know, not as vibrant and not as diverse. So I noticed that craving was really accurate, that I needed more colored vegetables. So of course I was craving like all these different colored vegetables. So our own internal like intuitive process of our food cravings, like once, you know, sugar is reduced, that can that can be really helpful. But I just noticed that this internal compass that I have matches well with this style of eating for each phase. Like I'll go over it real quick so it'll make a little bit more sense. So we'll start with menstruation. So during menstruation, because we're losing a lot of blood, there's minerals that get lost in the blood. So eating foods that are going to replenish minerals are really great. So seafood, seaweeds are amazing. I will sprinkle dulse flakes on top of my salads. And also magnesium-rich foods are great. So like any of the dark leafy greens. And the reason why I love magnesium is because it helps reduce bloating. So if you are experiencing that on your menstrual cycle, adding that back into your diet can be really helpful.
Yes.
And then and then iron-rich foods are going to be great. So obviously if you don't eat meat, there's foods that you can eat that are high in iron, like mushrooms and beans, such as like black beans, kidney beans, things like that. Lentils, even mulberries are high in iron. And I know like right now we're actually going into the summer season. I'm in the Midwest right now. So mulberries, if you find mulberries on the tree, pick some.
Mulberries are not here over here. I don't know if I've ever even seen a mulberry.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I don't think so.
There's mulberry trees. I live in, I'm in Michigan right now, but both in Michigan and Indiana, there are mulberry trees just on the side of the road, and like they grow from birds eating the seeds and then pooping, and then the tree growing from it. So they get cut down a lot, but oftentimes they'll just be on the side of the road, and there'll be these like luscious mulberry fruits that you can just pick, and then they get super ripe and they all just start falling. But so iron rich foods are going to be really important at this time, especially if you have really heavy flows, make sure that you're getting enough iron during menstruation and then afterwards to kind of replenish the body. And then just like according to Chinese medicine, so in the wintertime, the kidneys are the organs that need to be nourished. So drinking a lot of water, herbal teas. In Chinese medicine, it said that during menstruation and before menstruation, it's important to have a lot of warming foods because this will help with circulation to the reproductive system. This will help stimulate the uterine contractions. And prevent uterine cold. So eating some more warm foods are really great at this time.
Do you mean temperature warm or foods that contain, like I know that Chinese, it's more so food, like spicy foods, it can be considered warm foods?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah. So when I'm saying warming, it can be like actual warm foods, like warm broths and warm stews. But, if you do like to eat a lot of raw foods and it's summertime and it's already hot outside, putting like ginger in your food, cooking with that, or using some of the warming spices, like you were saying, spicy foods, that can be helpful. So yeah, anything that gets the blood circulating, that can be helpful.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then we go into our follicular phase, of course, when our estrogen starts to rise. So in the very beginning of our follicular phase, right after menstruation, it's important to still be eating these mineral boosting foods to help replenish the body. But then the more we get into our follicular phase, this is a great time to eat foods that are supportive for the liver. So as the body starts to produce more estrogen, to make sure that we have healthy estrogen levels, we want to support our liver in detoxifying estrogen. So any of the citrus fruits, like squeezing lemon in your water or making a juice, you could use like grapefruit, things like that can be really helpful for supporting the liver. And also in Chinese medicine, the spring relates to the liver organ. So that's a fun fact.
Oh, I love it. It's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected. Yes, I love it. And the cruciferous vegetables can be really helpful too in supporting the liver, which actually I'm a huge fan of eating cruciferous vegetables all throughout all of your seasons, just because they're so good in helping to metabolize excess estrogen, breaking it down.
Yeah.
And then just like energetically, younger foods can be nice during the follicular phase. But really our focus is to support the egg release and the healthy follicles. So eating foods with vitamin E, like almonds, avocado, peanut butter, those help to promote healthy follicles that are going to host and contain the eggs. So we really want to be just supporting our fertility at this time. And so then we move into our inner summer, which this is the time when our estrogen is the highest, our energy is most expanded. So again, we want to continue supporting the liver with the foods that can help to metabolize excess estrogen, as well as libido boosting foods. So like maca can be really helpful. Maca is an adaptogenic herb. It's actually a root vegetable from Peru. It's a libido stimulator for you and your man. So experiment with that. Foods that are high in antioxidants are going to be great at this time to support healthy egg maturation, as well as the vitamin E foods. Foods high in omega-3s are going to be great for your fertility. So walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, things like that are great. So yeah, again, we really want to be focusing still on building healthy fertility, and how do we do that? And the organ focus at this time in Chinese medicine is the heart and blood circulation. So eating some spicy foods can help, eating foods that help with the heart. So cacao is another aphrodisiac. I actually just put up a really delicious cacao elixir on my blog, which people might be interested in. Yeah, it's a cacao elixir for your inner goddess, and it's all like using legit cacao, not, the cocoa that's been processed.
Yeah, raw cocoa more, right?
Yeah, cacao.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cacao.
it's interesting how cacao is actually grown. It's a fruit. Well, it's the bean, like the pod of inside the fruit. It comes in a really hard layer that you actually have to like cut open with a really sharp knife. And then when you break that open, there's a very thin layer of fruits, very thin, that has this like vitamin C, like sweet sour taste, and it in the middle are these little cacao beans, and they're actually purple until you ferment it, and then it becomes like into the brown cacao that we're used to. But it's so interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, me neither, until I went to Costa Rica last summer, so I got to actually see it and try it, and I really yeah, it's really delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then after that, so that is all important, but excuse me. I would say one of the most important things is if you really want to start eating this way to support your cycle, the best place to start would be the luteal phase. Because, eating foods that promote fertility are going to be great. Eating foods that replenish your body after losing blood during menstruation are also great. But really supporting the luteal phase is where a lot of the magic is at. So during this time, if we still have too high estrogen levels after we've already released the egg, that's when, eventually in our luteal phase, we can have these imbalances of estrogen and progesterone. So eating more cruciferous vegetables during the luteal phase, especially in the beginning, can be really helpful for estrogen metabolism, as well as eating foods that are high in B vitamins. That's going to be really supportive for just like the mood as well as energy when we start to feel this energy decline as PMS starts to come. Eating anti-inflammatory foods, so like turmeric as well as omega-3s are super anti-inflammatory. And also look at like what we're eating in our diet that we might want to eliminate at this time. We can kind of get away with it more during our follicular and ovulatory phases, but in our luteal phase, if we're eating like crap, when we get our PMS, we may have louder, stronger symptoms. So during this time, looking at like what can I eliminate in my diet, which may not be so good. So like fried food or any of the foods that contain oils that are high in omega-6s. So for instance, like safflower oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, these are all high. Any of the vegetable oils are high in omega-6s. And so if we have too high ratio of omega-6 in our diet in relation to omega-3, that's going to be pro-inflammatory. And so we want to boost our omega-3 content, and we can do that again through like salmon, walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, the dark green leafy vegetables, the leafy greens, things like that, as well as using oils that like olive oil, hemp seed oil, coconut oil. Yeah, those are better. So, and then again, magnesium-rich foods. So like if you are having the bloating before your menstruation comes, like adding foods that are high in magnesium. So we said the dark leafy greens as well as cacao. Again, cacao shows up again. Another reason to eat chocolate.
Yeah.
And then, excuse me, and then eating more complex carbohydrates at this time, or starchy root vegetables. That's going to really help with like the fiber is going to help us feel fuller longer, because at this time of your month your body needs a bit more protein to create progesterone. And so if you're very active and you live a very like if you have a very fast-paced job where you're on your feet or you work out a lot, there's going to be a lot of muscle breakdown, and your body needs protein to create progesterone as well as to build muscle. So eating foods that are high enough in protein are going to be helpful, because enough fiber, protein, and fat, that's really going to help your body feel full at this time, and it's going to help to prevent blood sugar spikes and then these like awful cravings that we get. So so that's kind of like the gist of it. So again, I would say if there's a place you want to start, focus on your inner fall, your luteal phase.
Oh, you're freezing up.
As well as just Oh, are you still there? It just
it just cut off for like 10 seconds there, and now you're back.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I missed.
I don't know either. I was just saying how if you want to pick a place to start, the luteal phase is a great place to start, just to, support so you don't have like these terrible PMS symptoms. And so
that's great.
And then
we have about 5 minutes here, and can you just quickly touch on what would the difference be if you were into menopause already?
Okay. So eating this kind of diet throughout your menstrual years can help you go through like a better menopause, like have less of those symptoms, the hot flashes, all things like that, because your hormones can be balanced with the estrogen and the progesterone. If there's too low progesterone, sometimes that can exacerbate menopause symptoms. So if you haven't been eating this way and you're in perimenopause or going into menopause, it's really important to just eat for adrenal support, because once we go through menopause, our estrogen, our ovaries make estrogen, but that declines greatly. And then our adrenals actually kick in and make more of the estrogen. And so like our adrenals kind of take over that role. So supporting the adrenals so we can have healthy estrogen levels and healthy progesterone levels is really important. And so just foods that support adrenal health are going to be like blood sugar stabilizing foods again. So enough healthy fat, clean protein, and fiber. That's going to really help prevent these blood sugar swings, as well as eating more complex carbohydrates over simple carbohydrates. That's also going to help to keep the blood sugar stable. And some women are sensitive to coffee. This is something that not a lot of people know. But for some people, coffee can actually spike cortisol. And when cortisol spikes, that spikes insulin. So blood sugar levels can get a bit messed up. So if you are a coffee drinker and you do notice that after you drink coffee, an hour or so later, you feel like really hungry and just this anxious feeling, you might be having a blood sugar spike. So either reducing caffeine in coffee and switching to herbal tea, or maybe even putting some like healthy fat in your coffee, like coconut oil or ghee, things like that can help.
We're all about that in this group.
Yay! That's awesome.
Yeah. I put it into the weekly meal plan, and I have 3 meal plans, and everyone gets the butter, MCT or brain octane into the coffee a couple of days a week, if not every day. Most people tend to do it every day. I know I do. Just for that blood sugar. Like I really notice it if I don't use it.
That's wonderful that you promote that.
Yeah. So Alli, before we go, where can we find you, and what is on your site that people could go on and download? Because I think you have something for us, right?
Yes. Well, one, if you go to my site, you'll get, if you sign up for the newsletter, you get a free raw food 25 recipe e-cookbook to your email inbox. But if you are interested in going deeper into this whole cyclical eating with recipes, as well as knowing more about Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, goddess archetypes, rituals, workouts that you can do to support your hormones in each season, I have a course that just came out a couple months ago called Goddess in Rhythm. And it takes you, it's 5 weeks. The first week is an overview, but it takes you through each phase, and it really focuses on that. And there's a cookbook that goes along with it, as well as workout videos from like a Pilates coach and a yoga teacher and a fitness coach. So it's really about like, how can you live in harmony with your menstrual cycle? And these are the ways to do it. And it's really about nurturing your inner feminine. So if you are menstruating and you're interested in going deeper into this, there's tons of material. And then there's a lot of recipes on my blog. So again, if you just want to learn more how to cook for your body, whether you're menstruating or perimenopause or menopause, there's a lot of recipes on there that are just going to help support your hormones and help you get that feminine glow from within. So.
I actually have a good idea. Maybe I'll get a couple of the recipes and feature them in this month's recipe, because I always do one blog with recipes every month. So maybe I would like to feature you and 3 of your recipes in this month. How about that?
I would appreciate that, Karen. Yay! I love sharing this. It is my mission to help women learn how they can use food to amplify their inner feminine. So I just so appreciate what you do. So
I appreciate what you do. It's so great. This is what we need, is people like us out there changing it, right?
Oh yeah.
It has to happen. Well, thank you. I think we're going to run out of time. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll email you after this and we'll get connected over some recipes. And so if anybody needs to find you, they can go to okay, you tell it.
moderngoddesslifestyle.com.
And I will put the link underneath the video so everybody can go over there and get your free downloads and visit your site.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll have you on again. For sure, we'll have you on again.
Sounds good. Take care.
Okay, thanks, Alli. Bye.
Bye.